So it's, excuse me, Thursday, October 22nd, 2020. I am carless because Anthony, 1975, borrowed my car to go to work. And Linda and Lou are not allowing me to borrow their vehicle today. No reason, they're just not allowing me to. Now I'm homebound. I turned on 5 minutes of the morning, whatever. Now I'm just curious because I don't see anything important on the morning shows. I saw some kind of candy voting. Like, here's what I want to know. For every action, there is a reaction. For every reaction, there is an action that happened before the reaction that causes a second chain reaction. So, where do you get the raw intel? Like, where do you go to look to stay in the know? Where do you go to find out what a York peppermint patty stands for, if we're not going to assume it's New York? How do you find out what a Take Five represents? How do you find out what Milky Way represents? And so on and so forth down the line of what they were representing. Because I know that to the nominal public, like myself, I mean, Linda and Lou have been 42 years that I know of and longer out of the know. They don't get a list of what the candy represents. So now I'm just curious, in the United States of, let's call this America, since Alex and I are here in the state of New York, what exactly, how do we find out what the national security agenda is, what's on the news, like what the real news is behind what the TV gets to put on? Because like what the TV puts on is all fake spracha. I mean, none of it makes sense. It's just busy work. So, how do you find out like real shit? Just curious, because nobody's informed us living in prisoner of war camp, Empire State, New York, while all of the shitbags flood in and out and do whatever the fuck they want and don't consult me or Alexander at all. I'm just curious. Alexander's the Great. Why is he the Great? Well, I'm the crowned Gundar, from which he comes from my womb. He and I are a sigma directional. There's a straight line, which is myself, and then he came out on a second timepiece, the Drei for the Third Reich, into the fourth, which is the Vir realm. That's the E, that's the epsilon. It's Eastern Atlantic timing. I mean, that's what he is. So, and that's what I was as well. So that's the East Coast timing that they talk about on the watch, on the digital clock that everybody uses for all sorts of things. That's what he and I bring to humans, that they totally molest and abuse, don't pay us, don't even acknowledge us. So now why exactly are we all here? I'm just curious. I mean, I walk around, I had a conversation with the Johannes Vermeer painted today about how dismal and disgusting it is and how it's all eyesores everywhere I look. I don't understand. I've never understood, even when I was his age, why this needed to exist. I don't find any point. There's no purpose. There's no anything. Now, here's something that I hear all the time in New York. They're like, the city schools are so overcrowded. Really? Well, here's my question as a Nazi SS Soviet. Who's bringing their cousin, uncle, and their like brother's kids to school with them? Because if we just stayed at a even keel, the turnover of city population would stay consistent and we wouldn't run into budgeting concerns and overpopulation. The only time you run into overpopulation is when immigration is out of control and the cesspool kids are bringing in shit from other countries that nobody knows about and nobody actually wants. So did nobody learn this? Like, or did nobody like, I mean, some people actually do this for a living. Did nobody like ever think of that? I mean, I know like when I lived in Virginia, I'm just like, what a contrast Virginia is. They say Virginia is for lovers. Yes, it is. For where I was anyway. I was in Midlothian, and it was Midlothian, right outside of Hanover County, right outside of the city of Richmond. The city of Richmond is not as busy. I mean, I guess it's more of like a Bayside, a little bit more structured, like a Philadelphia than Bayside. But anyway, but I went to Hampton Park, where it was like nothingness, like just acres and acres and miles of nothing. And then they put like the Pocahontas highway. Oh, I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, I even told Jay as we were driving through it, I said, because I was pregnant with Alexander down there, and I had a problem in the middle of the night. I went to the hospital. Actually, it was really just a check-in, but whatever. Pete and Sue were staying that night. So we went down the Pocahontas highway, which had tolls. And I said to him, I was like, what I love down here? Like, there's such, like, I didn't know if it was Alexander and my cosmic, like, beat that just was so relaxing, but mixed into the Virginia equestry of, like laboratory, like equestry of just calm and stillness. It was almost like there was no radio waves, there was no like satellite. Like here, I feel like every 5 seconds there's some kind of satellite X-ray of the landscape, but not just one, because I feel like they've split it up into several dimensions, and each dimension gets an X-ray, and it is so taxing on the skin and the health. It is just absolutely horrific. My hair's falling out from radiation. It's horrible. But when I was in Virginia, there was calm. Even Benjamin said, because Benjamin hated it in New York, and when we moved to Virginia, Benjamin all of a sudden, like, he was a different kid. He felt like he was in a community. He felt at home. He really did. I mean, the people were so kind, so welcoming, so friendly, and they were so smart. They weren't like what we had in New York. But they were also a different echelon. I mean, they weren't like filthy, rich, wealthy people, but they were a community of a class, but that we didn't have in New York, because New York is just a sewer of transients. Virginia was like home. I mean, they were transient down there too, because they were 2 hours outside of Washington, but they were a different kind of transient. They were homegrown transients. They were congruent in their. They all looked American. I mean, if I was gonna say our country's name was America, and I was from state of New York, and they were from state of Florida or state of where else did we have? We had a whole bunch of New Yorkers, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. There was Florida down there. There was Maryland. There's a whole bunch of different states, and they all in Hampton Park, Hamptonpark. It wasn't one of those fancy like Palisades in North Carolina. It wasn't that. It wasn't like they had a gate, but it was just they were nice, affordable. Well, I mean, they were a little bit on the expensive side, but around 400,000. But they were nice cookie cutter homes, but in a nice development that made sense, and it was family friendly. Everything was geared towards, well, a homeowners association that agreed on being uber conservative and uber American, like 1920s American, where like it was all our same like-minded selfness, and the kids got along, the parents got along that I knew of while I was there. And it was a different vibration than what New York has always been, in feeling like you belong and feeling like there's a different mental feeling in the air. That's what Virginia brought, and that was the only contrast I've ever had, because I've only lived down there, I think a gestation for a baby is 9 months. So I was down there probably around 6 or 7 months by myself, just me, Benjamin, and Daniel. And it was the best time I've ever had on earth. Like it is the only time I can remember where it was actually pleasant in like I have a possibility of meeting someone. Like I mean I wanted pregnant with Alexander, so that kind of knocked off the dating thing, and yeah, I had toilet paper to Jason in New York, but I knew that I was not staying with him. So that was how that worked. But again, in the community, I wasn't like shopping other people's husbands either. That would have been weird. That's not my MO. But it was like, oh my God, there really are people like Ken and Claudia somewhere in the world, because in New York, there's none of those at all. It is like all area foreign invasion, foreign takeover, espionage, and like everything dirty and wrong with the world. Like New York is just a criminal state. It is like the worst of the worst since I got here. Virginia was like, I swear to God, it was like quiet superheroes. Like you walked down the streets and you felt like every dad behind those doors were like superheroes, like quiet superheroes. And like they came out with their capes at night and they did their work and then like nobody knew about it, but like you knew you were safe in that neighborhood. That's what it really felt like. Let's think about it. And as a single mom, I was like super important. And I was at like the end of the development, which was nice because you had a lot of superhero dads you had to get through in Spot Watch before you get to my position in development. And actually we had wild turkeys in the back, which was really, really funny. Daniel he got a real hoot out of that. He was like, you know, because he was only like 1.5, almost 2. All right, and then let's think about this. There was one other thing. All right, with the contrast between New York and Midlothian, Virginia, both on the Eastern Seaboard. Oh, right, and because I know this was a big thing. Apparently, Lewis had a woman by the name of Tatiana who had to take all of her stuff from Ukraine over the water and ship it here for the upstairs apartment that she rented. I didn't know them. I wasn't here, and I didn't talk to Lou and Lynn. So I was busy raising my kids. But my travels, I hired Phase 2, and I also hired another Apollo, Apollo, who robbed me on the way down to Virginia, but it was a drive. There was no flying involved. There was no defying the laws of gravity, which are actually serious crimes at U.S. Marshal and Supreme Justice that I can't oversee because you all have me locked in prisoner of war in state of New York. All right, and so let's think about this. One other thing was, and when I was like maybe 15, Lewis constantly pushing the computer and technology, which I was always adamantly against. He said his friend had this thing called an avatar, and he wanted me to come check it out on his computer. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And it was like a thing. And I was like, so? I was like, what do you do with it? He's like, I don't know. He's like, just put your name, like, I want you to create one. I was like, for what? What do you do with them? He could not tell me the purpose of what an avatar was used for. And I was like, Lou, and I said this to him, and he goes, Nicole. And I'm like, I am not creating and putting my name to something that you cannot define clearly what the purpose of it is for. I was like, Avatar, great, like the name. I don't see a purpose in it. I'm not putting my name to it. And I don't know why you keep pushing all of this crap. I don't want to spend my entire life sitting in front of a light box pushing buttons for a career. I want to be out meeting people. And this box that you keep pushing for the future, you keep saying it's like a filing box in an organization. I think it's the stupidest fucking thing that humans could have possibly created. I told him that then, and I still stand by that now.